Hello, I'm Dane DiFebo, museum educator of the National Civil War Museum here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I bring to you this captivating story of the American Civil War for the month of October. In recognition of Halloween and the often creepy and odd customs of Victorian-era people, and remembering and mourning for loved ones, the museum thought that we should spend time reflecting on how Mary Todd Lincoln embraced these customs during the difficult times in her life, but especially after the assassination of her husband, President Abraham Lincoln. We all know that Mary Todd Lincoln's life was torn asunder by tragedies, which had adverse effects on her mental, physical, and emotional health. Mary Todd Lincoln suffered from frequent migraines as an adult, which were exacerbated by a head injury received from a carriage accident on July 2nd, 1863, that occurred while en route returning from a retreat to the Soldiers' Home in Washington, D.C., and proceeding to the White House. Besides the tragic night of April 14th, 1865, and the scene of Abraham Lincoln's assassination, which she so vividly experienced, only one of Mary Todd Lincoln's 4 sons survived the teenage years and reached adulthood. She was very depressed for much of her life, which likely exacerbated by the early deaths of these 3 children, as well as the death of her mother when she was just 6 years old, and her subsequent difficult relationships with her stepmother, Elizabeth Betsy Humphreys. Mary Lincoln's grief over her son Willie's death was so devastating that she took to her bed for 3 weeks, and she could not attend the funeral or look after Tad. When Tad died at the age of 18, likely from complications from tuberculosis, Mary Todd Lincoln was too distraught to travel with his casket from Chicago to Springfield, Illinois. Additionally, some historians think Mary Todd Lincoln may have had bipolar disorder or pernicious anemia, which caused outbursts, mood swings, temper, excessive spending, and manic and depressive episodes. Her condition caused a tense and difficult relationship to develop with her only surviving son, Robert Todd Lincoln, who kept his distance from her for political reasons, destroyed her letters, and pressed efforts to have her institutionalized for insanity. Regardless, Mary Todd Lincoln should be remembered today for her undying love for her family and her interest in holding on to the memories of those that she had lost. After the death of her son Willie from typhoid fever in February of 1862 at age 11, Mary Todd Lincoln searched for an outlet for her grief and found it in spiritualism. She was introduced to the Lawries, a well-known group of mediums that were focused in the Georgetown, D.C. area. Mrs. Lincoln found such comfort from the seances held by this group that she started hosting her own seances in the Red Room of the White House. Evidence suggests that she held 8 of these seances and that Abraham Lincoln attended a few of them as well. After the seances, Mary Todd Lincoln told her half-sister that Willie and occasionally her son Ed visited her every night at the foot of her bed. After her husband's assassination, Mary was visited in the White House by several spiritualists. They attempted to console the grieving widow. Years later, while living in Chicago, Mary went to seances under an assumed name and liked to test the medium's skills. In 1872, after the death of Thomas or Tad Lincoln, Mary Todd Lincoln was recovering from a breakdown which was caused from depression and grief and resulted in delusional thoughts, paranoia, and fears of poverty. That year, she went to a spiritualist photographer named William H. Mumler in Boston, who produced a photograph of her that appears to faintly show Abraham Lincoln's ghost behind her. This image is recognized now as a hoax created by the double exposure process in photographing. The incident and her erratic behavior precipitated Robert Lincoln's efforts to have Mary Todd Lincoln institutionalized, and following a trial, she was committed to a private asylum in Batavia, Illinois, a fate which likely resulted in a suicide attempt. Much of the modern historical literature on Mary Todd Lincoln is critical of her personality, her at times iron-willed influence over her more famous husband, and some of the odd and boisterous behaviors that she exhibited during her lifetime. However, Mary Todd Lincoln's life, as should have been made evident in this video, must be understood and interpreted within the context of her own personal struggles, her gendered and social position in Victorian society, and her acceptance of popular customs of the time. These factors all contributed to the efforts to mourn lost Lincolns that a nation so dearly missed as well. Thank you for listening to this captivating story of the American Civil War. Please like other videos like this and subscribe to the National Civil War Museum's YouTube channel.